the Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Communities. We are here today to discuss two dockets, docket 0666 and 0667. I want to remind our viewers that this is a public hearing and it's being recorded, broadcast, and streamed on cable television, as well as the website cityofboston.gov or boston.gov/citycounciltv. I'd ask everyone to please silence their cell phones and other devices, and if folks have conversations, to please take them outside because the acoustics can be challenging at times. I'm joined by two colleagues. First, from District 2, Councillor Ed Flynn, and from District 7, City Councillor Gim Janey, who will be with us presently. And again, we're having a hearing on two dockets. The first is docket 0666, which is message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $262,763 in the form of a grant for the 2019 Senior Companion Program awarded by the Corporation for National and Community Service to be administered by the Age Strong Commission. And docket 0667, which is a message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $165,303.60 in the form of a grant for the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, awarded by the Corporation for National and Community Service to be administered by the Elderly Commission. Now, it's important to note, and this has happened before, that sometimes these grant numbers can either be increased or decreased from when they were originally awarded. Those who are watching this was originally listed as a grant of $130,253. That's what was presented. Before today, we learned this morning that the grant has actually been increased by $35,000 to $165,303.60. The Commission will explain why that is when we get to it, but suffice to say that we will be voting on this in what's known as a new draft when it comes before the Council in several weeks. So, always delighted to be with you both. Thank you very much. Commissioner Shea, you want to begin by introductions and any opening statements?
Sure. So we're so happy to be here today. I'm here with my colleague Frances Thomas, who's our Deputy Commissioner for Finance at the Age Strong Commission. These two dockets are focused on our volunteer programs through the Corporation for National and Community Service. We have over 400 people over 55, older adults over 55, serving throughout the City of Boston in our volunteer programs, and they're really providing just amazing energy and experience and really giving back to the community in ways that are benefiting the whole city. So I just want to start by thanking our volunteers and obviously thanking the Corporation for National and Community Service for giving us these grants as well. We've run these programs for a long time here at the City of Boston. And they do great work in the community. It's really all about impact-driven volunteer work.
That's great. Deputy Commissioner Thomas, did you have any opening statements, or shall we get right into questions?
We can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So 300 seniors or 355 plus residents participate in these volunteer programs.
Yeah, we actually have over 400.
Oh, 400.
Over 400 in all of our volunteer programs. Yes.
Oh, but for these two specifically.
For these two, our goal for RSVP, and we are still in the recruitment process, but our goal is 365 volunteers. And so we probably have somewhere around 330 right now.
Fantastic.
And then for the Senior Companion Program, we have around 66 volunteers in that program.
Fantastic. And how do we, and what do these volunteers do, sort of generally?
Sure. So the Senior Companion Program, I can start with, that is a program that is designed to help frail older adults in the community, to help them live independently. So our volunteers who are volunteering for us, at the same time, it's also an anti-poverty program. So all of our volunteers are under 200% of the federal poverty level, and they get a tax-exempt stipend to volunteer of $2.65 an hour. Has not been increased by the federal government in a long time. But they volunteer at least 20 hours a week with us, and they're matched with more frail older adults in the community who need some supports in order to stay in the community and stay out of a nursing home. So they're doing things like helping people sort through mail, getting groceries, getting medications for people, helping maybe with some light meal prep, with maybe some whatever household chores they may need some assistance with, and at the same time they're providing that companionship that's really essential to someone living well in the community. We know that when folks are socially isolated, it has the health impact of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and so. In addition to really helping these folks get their medications and a lot of other things, they're providing that essential companionship and support to people.
That's great. So the grant goes to subsidize the $2.65 an hour wage? Stipend, excuse me, yeah. That does seem awfully low. If 20 hours at $2.65, that's $53 a week.
And the fantastic thing about it is that it's actually tax exempt by federal statute, so it doesn't impact any of the benefit programs that people might be on. What I would, it is. I wish they could raise it. Yes.
Yeah. But it's said by federal policy. It's not as though the city of Boston could do it.
The city can't do it.
And does it at all affect, I'm sorry, but I just don't want to,
okay.
Does it affect, one of the things that I love, and I know my colleagues and I really encourage many of our older residents to take advantage of, particularly those who are homeowners, that there are some great tax abatements that the city offers for volunteerism. So would this go into that? In other ways, could one of these ambassadors also take advantage of a city property tax break?
Certainly, they could take advantage of any of the city tax abatements or exemptions. The property tax work-off program, they also could do if they were a homeowner, but it would have to be hours separate from these hours, because these hours are spent in people's homes or sometimes in centers where they're helping people.
I see.
And the property tax needs to be spent in a city department.
So it doesn't preclude them from taking advantage of that program,
Exactly.
but it has to be a separate hours on that. Okay.
Correct.
And so this is 666, docket 666. And what's the recruitment process look like? I mean, it's great that you've got 365 already, but what's the recruitment process?
Yes. So for this grant, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the senior companion grant. So I think I switched it up on you, which I apologize. Yep. So this one we have about 66 volunteers right now. We recruit all throughout the city. So we were out tabling at probably 30 different community events this year, recruiting. We pretty much will go anywhere that we're able to go and really talk to people about this program. This program, our funding limits us to 65 volunteer slots at 20 hours a year. Mm-hmm. So we can't grow this program because of this. It's a stipend base. We can't grow it kind of over the amount of money we're given. And so we go out and we recruit for this program, and we also sometimes run a wait list for this program. Okay. So right now we're still recruiting for it, but after we fill another couple of slots, we'll be putting people on.
Do you have a breakdown of participation rates by neighborhood?
We could have one.
Just more out of curiosity's sake, obviously certain neighborhoods have a higher percentage of seniors, including Ward 20, I think, leads the city, but that would just be interesting to see if there's any way that as district councilors particularly we could help spread the word and let folks know about this great opportunity.
Sure. It's a really fabulous program, and we'd be happy to provide a breakdown by neighborhood. We have a lot of data in our system.
Fantastic.
So. And I will say, you said the money goes towards stipends. It does. It also goes towards meal and travel reimbursement that the volunteers get, and then there's a small admin piece to that as well.
Okay, great.
For us to manage the grant.
Who manages it internally, and is it the deputy commissioner?
No, so it sits under our deputy commissioner, Melissa Carlson, our deputy for partnerships. And she does a lot of our work that involves partner agencies. So the other thing I didn't say about this grant, and this is also true of the RSVP grant, we partner with organizations throughout the city. So for example, Counselor, in your neck of the woods, we partner with Ethos. They serve as a volunteer site for us, and so we're able to place volunteers at Ethos, and then Ethos will match them with the older adults that they know in the community that needs assistance. So for this program, we have about a little over 15, somewhere between 15 and 20 partner sites that serve as volunteer stations for us. And similar, bless you, similar for RSVP, we have over 40 partner sites that serve as volunteer stations where we're able to place RSVP volunteers who then do their work from there.
Okay, fair enough. So we're just going to, since I think we've covered them, I have one specific question on both, but we'll just, since we've essentially done a good job explaining both grants, can you talk briefly why the grant awarded has increased by approximately $35,000 from the original number?
Sure. So, some of that is real and some of that is projected.
Okay.
So at this point, we've gotten an additional $7,500 boost to our base grant amount for every, so it will continue on. So we're very, very excited about that. That doesn't usually happen. And then this is also a grant where we could see increases throughout the year. So sometimes if the Corporation for National and Community Service gets additional funds in, they may give us more money and they may say, this is because we want you to send your people to the national conference, or this is so that you can provide additional training for the volunteers, or purchase additional equipment for the program, or recognition items for the volunteers. So they're very directive typically when they give funds for the rest of the year. But the $7,500 is an increase to our base amount.
Okay, that's terrific.
And that's just so we just included it higher so we don't have to come back to you throughout the year.
Fair enough. No, happy to. So just to be clear, docket 666, which is a grant of $262,763 for the Senior Companion Program, that funds how many positions?
That funds
Or stipends, individuals for their stipends?
Sure. So that like real answer to that is it funds 65 VSYs, which are volunteer service years.
Yeah.
And so that means that it's a 20-hour-a-week slot for the entire year.
Okay.
So say you have a volunteer that does less than 20, a couple people could make up that slot, or if you have a volunteer that leaves partway through the year, you can fill. So typically we run higher volunteers than the number of slots, if that makes sense.
It does.
But it funds 65 VSYs is what it funds.
So, but I guess I'm trying to square the math that I'm just missing. Does that also include some of your, because if it's 65 weeks times 53 weeks times 52 weeks in the year, that's 179,000. So that's a difference of about 80,000.
Yeah. So it funds the VSYs.
Yeah.
It funds the travel reimbursement.
I see, and the meals.
It funds the meals, and it funds our team to run the program.
Perfect. Okay, that makes sense.
So those are. And did I miss anything?
correct.
That's
Correct.
what it funds.
And then with 667, it's the amount of, with an asterisk that it's subject to possibly change slightly, but about 165,000, and that funds how many positions in the RSVP program?
Sure. So that again, that will fund staff.
Yeah.
There are no stipends for this program, but we do some travel reimbursement for it. And it funds staff to administer
So
it.
that's the difference.
And that's the program that we have the 360 goal of 365 volunteers. That program is doing more. They are doing some companionship. But they also are doing things like delivering food from food pantries to older adults that need it. They're doing a program called Bus Buddies where they're helping people navigate public transportation. They are serving veterans in the community, so they're doing a whole host of things under that program.
And is there any income requirements for that?
There is not, so you just have to be over 55 years of age.
And can that be used on the property tax work off, or no, because they're outside city buildings?
That's an interesting question, Counselor.
You can get back to me if you guys are unclear.
Yeah, let me get back to you. So I think that someone could be RSVP and a property tax work-off at the same time. The interesting thing about this grant is it's set up so that a certain percentage of your volunteers have to be in impact-driven work plans that you've said you're going to do.
Gotcha.
And they have to fit some national impact measures. And so if a property tax work-off volunteer was going to also be RSVP, they would have to fit within the percentage of kind of flexible volunteer slots we have.
That makes sense. No, that's really helpful. I think you covered it all. So that is all I have at this point. I think Councilor McCarthy had popped in as well from District 5. Councilor Flynn, you'll start with the questioning.
Well, thank you, Councilor O'Malley, and thank you to Commissioner Shea and to Deputy Commissioner Thomas for your outstanding work. And we want to ask you if you could let your staff know that we're proud of the hard work they also put in throughout the neighborhoods of Boston. We see them almost every day at various events representing the city, but making sure that our elderly, our seniors are treated fairly and treated with respect. So we just want to say thank you to the staff at your department for excellent work.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Commissioner, I was always concerned about what type of outreach do we have for seniors in the most difficult locations to reach, whether those seniors are immigrants, whether those seniors don't have language access challenges. How can we be sure that we're reaching almost the most vulnerable seniors, especially the very low income, our immigrant community, and maybe seniors that have language challenges?
Sure, Councilor. I mean, I think that this is something we think about every day at the commission. You know, we're not doing our jobs unless we're reaching people and finding people and touching people and having them access all that we have to offer and all that the Aging Network has to offer here in Boston. And so we take it very seriously. We have a significant number of kind of front-facing staff at the commission, and we do our best to hire a diverse group of people, especially folks that are kind of understand the culture and speak the language of a lot of our constituents. We also have funds that we utilize for translation services and also for interpretation services. And I think you might have seen our interpretation headsets that we purchased over the last couple of years, where we're able to simultaneously translate when we're meeting with and talking to groups of older adults throughout the community. So a lot of times, if we're going out to a housing building, we might talk to someone there first, the manager, the resident service coordinator, understand kind of what languages are spoken in the building, and then work to have that type of translation available for people. So we also we rebranded, which we're really excited about, the Age Strong Commission. We have new brochures that have been finalized, and we just had them translated into 7 languages, which we're excited about. And so we are waiting with bated breath for those to come back from the printer. They're at the printer now. So we will have that available. We did the 5 basic languages that the city does, and then we also did French and Portuguese, because a lot of our Haitian older adults actually might read French, and a lot of our Cape Verdean older adults, their school was in Portuguese. So we did those languages as well. And then finally, I would say that we have a contract with a language line in our office, so we are able to utilize the language line to make sure that we're able to serve whoever it is that calls us.
Thank you, Commissioner. And if there's one issue that I've spent as much time on, it's language access and making sure that our immigrant community and those that don't speak English are able to access the same level of basic city services as anyone else. And so just going forward, I'm gonna ask a lot of questions to departments on something you highlighted, which I'm very grateful that you did, new brochures. You know, are the brochures translated into the many languages that we speak here in Boston? And, you know, we might be able to print them, but are we printing enough brochures? And are we going to run out of brochures at a time? But can we have a system where if we think we're running out of brochures, instead of running out of the brochures, place an order in so that our services aren't interrupted? I know it's a very, you know, it's a question really in the weeds, but I don't want any services interrupted because, you know, the printer is behind schedule. And that's a very important issue to me and to my constituents.
Sure. I mean, I think that makes sense. Certainly, we're waiting for these to come from the printer because they're a brand new design. And we have other materials that we're using, but these are newly translated brochures. But I would say that we do have a tracking system for all of our things down at the commission so that we're able to order and not run out of things.
In the other department that I think does exceptional work is the Mayor's Commission on Persons with Disabilities. What type of work are you doing with them to making sure that our seniors with disabilities also benefit from such an excellent program that you're coordinating?
Sure. Sure. So we work with the Commission on Persons with Disabilities. We work with them very collaboratively. So we work a lot with them around different housing issues, accessibility, universal design. We also, they know about our programs and they're able to promote our programs. We know about their programs. We're able to promote their programs. I would say that we also have, as part of our area agency on aging work, where we're distributing Older Americans Act funds into the community. We also have specific grants with Mass Association for the Blind and Deaf Inc., where we're able to partner with them to better serve those communities and make sure that people are getting what they need and getting access. And so, you know, we recently had the Disability Commission come in. The commissioner came in and met with our leadership team to help to make sure that we're doing everything that we can, both in our materials, but also at all of our events to make sure they're accessible. So we've always done things like walkthrough of event spaces to make sure that bathrooms are accessible and there are no stairs and things like that. But now we have a more structured list of things that we look for every time, thanks to the Disability Commission. So they're a great partner.
Yeah, I think your office and the Commission for Persons with Disabilities are doing excellent work. And even during these development projects, I always ask the developers if you'll coordinate with the Age Strong Commission, will you coordinate with the Mayor's Commission on Persons with Disabilities, because a construction project in a various location, what impact will that have on an elderly person that's trying to navigate the sidewalk with the dumpster there? What impact will it have on a person in a wheelchair, a person that is blind? So, you know, just going forward, those are some of the issues that are very important to the quality of life of residents, but especially our residents that really need government to be in their corner. So I'm proud of the work that you're doing, Commissioner, and Mr. Thomas as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Janney?
Thank you so much. Many thanks to the panel for being here and for all your good work throughout the year. Just a couple of questions to follow up on some of the earlier questions from my colleagues around recruitment. Can you speak a little more specifically about how you recruit folks to participate as volunteers? And then if you could also speak to how you identify seniors who may want to get a companion and help them.
Sure, sure. So I can speak to recruitment. I would say if you know of anyone, send them our way. But we are always brainstorming and always trying to try new things with recruitment. So as I said, we're tabling throughout the community. We're also going out and speaking to different groups. We have over 50 front-facing staff, so all of our team members know about the programs, and when they're out there doing their own specific work, if they're identifying someone who might be a good volunteer, they're bringing that back to the volunteer program. We also advertise the program in our Boston Seniority magazine to let people know it's an opportunity. And we recently, for the first time, had a little bit of extra funds, and we did for the first time ads on buses on like 30 different bus routes. 30?
Yes.
What would you say is the average age of your volunteer
goodness.
group? Does it vary? Is it primarily young people who might be college age? And so when you say you're speaking
yeah.
to groups, are you out
Sure.
speaking to kind of affinity groups that are in colleges and universities, or are you thinking outside of that? Like,
Sure. So these two programs that we're talking about today are, because of the Corporation for National and Community Service guidelines, are 55 and older. So we're targeting people 55 and older.
To be the volunteer
To be the
companions.
volunteers.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Okay, so, wow.
So and then for the property tax work-off program, I think it's 60 and over.
16 of them.
It could be 65, but I think it's 60. Yeah, it is 60. And then the last one we have is the last volunteer program we have is our senior greeter program, the folks that sit up at the front desk and help people navigate where they're
The
going.
building, yes, they're wonderful downstairs.
Oh my gosh, they're
Yes.
they're an awesome group.
Yeah.
And so
Can I ask this, are you in senior buildings? So some of our housing is, dedicated to older adults.
Yeah.
Do you recruit there as well?
we do. We certainly do. We both recruit there, and we also have some volunteer placements there. So we have some of our RSVP companionship places in some of the senior buildings where they're trying to get folks out of their apartments and to come down and do some type of card game or some type of activity together. So we're doing, but we are out there recruiting in those buildings.
And you mentioned a stat in your presentation. Was it 15 packs of cigarettes a day?
Oh, yeah. No,
that-
cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
Not packs.
15, okay, God.
That would be a lot of,
So 15, so
cigarettes.
isolation.
Yeah, social isolation.
Social isolation is the equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day.
Yeah, it has the same health impact.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
I mean, that's why we really have to do, we have to, I think in the last couple of years, this has been an issue that's really catching people's attention. And there's a lot of thinking going on nationally about how you really find and target people who are socially isolated. And that's something that we need to, it's something that's we do a lot of programs that do that, but to find the people that are really truly isolated, that don't have a lot of connections, that may not be coming out of their homes, is a hard thing to do. And so we're constantly thinking about new ways to try to reach people.
Can I ask this? So if you have a volunteer who is a companion and is having a hard time connecting with maybe an elder who is socially isolated and who doesn't want to participate in the game night or whatever the activity is, are there other resources that volunteer then can tap into to really try to connect? What I'm finding as I really try to connect with more and more seniors in my district is kind of seniors who are socially isolated, who can't really get beyond that first step that it would take to kind of want to, get dressed, get out of the house, go down. So I'm wondering if there are other resources within the Age Strong Commission or throughout, maybe it's the Health and Human Services commission that we can really tap into if there's like a depression grabbing hold
Yeah.
of some of our more seasoned adults? How do we then intervene, I guess,
Sure.
beyond the companionship if we see that someone's really struggling with depression or isolation?
Sure. So a couple of things on that. So I would say that with our senior companion program, they actually get 4 hours of training a month. So they come together and they do training every month. We do it in a number of different languages because we have companions that speak a number of different languages. And so some of their training is around depression and what to do, like different signs that they should be looking at and noticing and kind of bringing back to their volunteer station or bringing back to our volunteer coordinators downstairs if they're worried about somebody. And then there are a lot of resources in the community, so I think sometimes you have to try a lot of different things and see what it is that you can reach somebody around. So, for example, there is that Friendship Works is an organization that we contract with around Older Americans Act dollars, and they have friendly visiting programs, so they will actually send a volunteer into somebody's home. And so if you can't get the person out, maybe you can get somebody in to connect with them. There also are, we also have a contract with Ethos to do evidence-based programs across the state, and there is an evidence-based program called Healthy Ideas that they're running that helps to target older adults who may have depression. And so, you know, I think the major thing is getting the volunteer to kind of bring that helping them, training them so that they know what kind of information to bring back. Oh no, they get 4 hours of training a month.
4 hours of training per month. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. So you mentioned Ethos a couple of times, and I know that they're doing good work working with the LGBTQ Elders of Color group. At least I've gone to a couple of events that
Sure.
Ethos has been a major partner working with the LGBTQ community, Elders of Color. How, in terms of the companionship program, are you able to kind of tap into kind of that community as well through the companionship program? Or is it more difficult because people are spread out if they're not organized, like coming together for Cafe Pride?
Yeah, so the companionship program is really mostly done in people's homes.
Okay.
So it's about those volunteer stations working with us to identify the older adults that are kind of most at risk that may need that companionship assistance. And so I know LGBT Elders of Color, Ethos has been a real leader on all LGBTQ issues throughout the aging network, really but Central Boston Elder Services has actually been kind of the host site for the LGBT Elders of Color group, and we also do have a senior companion. They are one of our volunteer stations for senior companion as well. So I think it's about working to, you know, identifying who needs assistance.
Right. And so let's talk about that. So we talked
yeah.
about recruitment for the companions. If you could speak just a little bit more to how you identify, and I think it was, you mentioned earlier, tabling at different events, you could get both the volunteers who want to be companions as well
Yeah.
as maybe some of the older adults who need a companion.
Sure.
Or are you also doing something more targeted? And if, you know, I or one of my colleagues on the council, you know, find a resident who's an older adult who really could use a companion, that's information we would get to you. Is there an application? Like, how does it work on
Sure.
that end to get folks into the program?
Sure. So, so I described before that these, both of these programs are run with kind of a volunteer intermediary, a volunteer station. Those volunteer stations are usually doing the identification of who needs a companion in kind of their service area, in their area that they work on.
Does that mean that there isn't an application or a way for someone else to say, here's a senior? So how?
There's not an application to get a senior companion. However, if there is somebody who needs a senior companion, they certainly can contact us, and we'll figure out the volunteer station that's kind of closest to them, that provides this, you know, the type of of assistance they might need.
Wonderful. Could I ask this?
Yeah.
Could you, I know you have some follow-up from a question earlier. Could we have that, the volunteer stations
Oh, the
by
list?
neighborhood?
Sure, sure.
And if we could
sure.
have, is it organized by neighborhood so that if we are encountering
sure we could
folks that
pull
we
it
can
by
tap them
neighborhood.
in to the nearest location the same way that you would? And then also, if, in terms of recruitment, whether older adults who want a companion or older adults who want to be a companion, either way, I'm sure, you know, my colleagues, I would agree. We're happy to kind of share that information. I'm sure
Great.
folks are already sharing that. I do a regular newsletter. I'm happy to put that in the newsletter.
Okay.
I think you're doing great work. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'll just add one other thing. We are actually a volunteer station ourselves for one new program we started under Senior Companion this year, and that is our respite program. So we are recruiting and training volunteers to go into the home of somebody with dementia and their care partner and provide a few hours of respite care so that that care partner can get out of the home.
That is so input. So I would really like more information on that.
So
there are
we
a
can-
lot of people that I know who are struggling with that very issue. And it
Wonderful.
is so difficult because so much of that burden falls on that primary caretaker, and oftentimes they're isolated. Oftentimes they're older adults as well, and they're not necessarily getting the support that they need because, you know, lots of other
Right.
people in that family might be working and cannot do the day-to-day, round-the-clock care that some folks need. And so
Right.
that, I would love some more information on that.
Yeah, great. So for that program, we are recruiting both for people that want to be volunteers, and actually we're taking volunteers of any age for that program. And we also are recruiting for people that need the service. And so, so that's a big thing. And there are a number of caregiver supports that are out there, the Family Caregiver Program, a number of other ways we can get caregivers some support. So if you're seeing people in those situations, you can feel free to call our office as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you again for all the work that you guys are doing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course. Counselor Flynn just had one more quick follow-up.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor O'Malley, and I just wanted to follow up on some questioning from Councilor Janey. I know the social isolation that you talked about really hit home for me as we were talking about our immigrant community, language access issues, persons with disability. But can you talk about social isolation for our seniors that are living in public housing? What programs or assistance are you providing our residents in BHA property? What's your relationship with BHA, and how can we do a better job of identifying seniors in public housing that may need some extra assistance?
Sure. So I think there's always more to be done, Counselor, but what I can say is that we do have some of our RSVP volunteers placed in public housing, trying to work with the manager, with the task force, to try to identify people that want to come out and participate in something. We also are funding through the Older Americans Act dollars, Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, who are running, they probably have about 20 buildings now, not all public housing, but a lot of public housing buildings, where they are running groups, intergenerational groups, trying to get people out of their homes. I know that Friendship Works is also out there in some of the public housing buildings. They're funded through Goddard House to do some music groups out there. And BHA, over the last couple of years, contracted with a number of organizations, our three ASAPs here in Boston, Boston Senior Home Care, Ethos, and Central Boston Elder Services. I also know they have a contract with La Brea to provide some resident services support in their elder and disabled housing buildings. And so I think that there's a lot going on in the different buildings, and there's a lot more that needs to be done in the different buildings. And so we look to identify buildings that need a little extra assistance, need some programs, and are trying to target them for whatever we're running out in the community.
Thank you. And I guess my last question or point is, almost every month, the mayor's, the Veterans Services, Commissioner Santiago has an Operation Thank-A-Vet.
Yes.
And they have a list of veterans that they go out to meet on a Saturday with the staff from vets, but also with volunteers. I usually attend with them every month. But are you coordinating with vets on, work prior to these volunteers going out, identifying which veterans are seniors and maybe providing a little bit of some brochures or some information that might be available to that veteran on services that they could use through your office?
Sure. I think that we do have some of our program information in the package that they give out. I haven't heard. I knew that 8 months ago. I should check. We should make sure that they have our new brochures when our new brochures come, because that would be a good thing to include in the packet. We also have some of our RSVP volunteers who've been participating in some of those Think-A-Vet sessions, as well as a few of our team members downstairs. So, and we actually, I just talked to the commissioner last night. We are going to be meeting in the middle of September, really to look at our older adult volunteers and anything more that they can do to be supporting Boston's veterans.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, we appreciate this. I think that the level of thoughtful questioning from my colleagues, even though it was some of it veered off topic a little bit, underscores how important the work is that you're doing and how we are fully committed to being your partners going forward. And obviously, it goes without saying, these will be easy to vote favorably at our next meeting, and hope that we can help you do the work as soon as possible. There were a couple questions, I think good ones from myself and Councillor Janey, so if your team could supply us with the information to me and I'll disseminate to the rest of the council, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
I have no further questions. I don't believe anyone else is here to testify on these particular matters, so unless hearing otherwise, I will hereby adjourn our hearing on docket 0666 and 0667. Thank you and good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.